that it could be back.
Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Untitled Chapter. I'm the Deputy Chairperson of the Cape Town Press Club. And it's an honor to have you all in person for the person today. It's been a while since we've been able to do a lot of big events, so we really appreciate you taking the time to do that. Before we get started and get to the presentation and question and answer session with His Excellency Ambassador Andreas Peshka, I just wanted to say a huge thank you to Christian Enders and the team of the Conrad Adenauer Stiftung for their ongoing support and making this evening possible. Throughout the pandemic, they've partnered with us and collaborated with us on a number of events, and really appreciate it. It's also worth thanking, and this is our first collaboration with the South African Institute of International Affairs, and we are very pleased to partner with them to bring this discussion here tonight, and we hope that will be the first of many collaborations going forward. Like us, we share a passion for using our platform to engage on a number of pertinent issues to bring people, ordinary citizens who are interested in what's happening around the world, together to debate and discuss the issues. So we look forward to many future collaborations with them. Before we get to tonight's event, I would like to just discuss some of our upcoming events. So for those of you who don't know what the Cape Town Press Club is, we're a non-profit organization, and we serve a number of purposes. I think our main purpose is obviously to ensure that our democracy enjoys a free press, and that's something we are most supportive reason for being. And we pride ourselves on being a platform for newsmakers to come and share their ideas and thoughts, and then obviously use that to stimulate discussion and public debate as well. So we host events quite regularly. If you would like to look at our latest events, you can visit our website, which is www.capetownpc.org.za. And I'll just run through a couple of our events coming up. On Thursday, the 17th of February, we'll be hosting activist, writer, and academic Malcolm Ray. He'll join us to discuss why capitalism has triumphed in the West but failed in Africa. And then on the 21st of February, we are hosting Cape Town Mayor Jordan Lewis. He will join us to reflect on his 101st days in office. So if you'd like to RSVP for those events, please visit our website or send us an email. You can also follow us on Twitter at Press Club. So with that out of the way, I think it's time to start this evening's engagement. And I'd like to introduce Mike Spicer from the South African Institute of International Affairs, who will take us through the four CVs today. Mike is one of those CVs you look at and wonder how you both have the same amount of hours in the day. He's an incredibly accomplished businessman, and he's been involved in many organizations over the years, looking after a range of issues for the benefit of our nation. And he'll take us through the formal proceedings today. Last week was the turn of the British Ambassador. Tonight, of course, is the turn of His Excellency Ambassador Andreas Peshka. And yeah, we hope you enjoy the evening and look forward to seeing you at more events soon.
Thank you very much indeed, Wendy, for the introduction. It's my very great pleasure as incoming chair of the Western branch of SIA, following in the distinguished footsteps of Sheila Camera, to welcome you all to this joint meeting with the Cape Town Press Club and the Conrad Adenauer Stiftung on Africa's policy from the Federal Republic of Germany's perspective. And we'd like to welcome the ambassador here this evening. He has a very distinguished career as a career diplomat. His studies were in African studies, and he has now been posted in the three major economies of sub-Saharan Africa, following the postings in Nigeria and then as ambassador in Kenya. He was the spokesman for the Foreign Office in Germany and has worked on the European desk. Also has a posting in Moscow, which would bring some resonance to the current issues surrounding Ukraine. So this is the first tripartite meeting we have had. We are a sister organization with PESPA, but SIRE, and in the deep dark past, many years ago, I was the deputy director of SIRE in Johannesburg and some past. So over the many years, we have worked closely with the Conrad Adenauer Stiftung and partnered in a number of initiatives, partly when Greg Mills was the director, but subsequently as well. So I think it's a very good format for us to meet under the aegis of the two organizations. So without further ado, Ambassador, if you'd like to join me on the stage, and thanks for seeing us.
So, ladies and gentlemen, very nice to meet you, very nice to be here. And first of all, of course, big thank you to SIRE, big thank you to Press Club, big thank you to the Konrad Adenauer Foundation for having me tonight. I think to have these joint things, we have tripartite and collaborate is always a good thing. So we have a big experience in Europe as our cooperation. As probably my colleague mentioned us, but we have told you last week as well. So in what we are doing in Africa, in South Africa, and worldwide, we're very much also together. So I'm glad to be here, and I would like to share a few thoughts with you. And of course, I will be very happy to listen to you, also ask questions. In discussing what we are trying to do in Africa and South Africa from a German perspective. As you know, we elected our new government last year, end of September. It took a while to get the coalition together. It started its work based on the coalition treaty at the beginning of December. And this new government in Berlin brought a few firsts. In Germany. The first thing, the government consists of three partners. It's also tripartite from three different political movements. So we have the Social Democrat Party, of course. We have the Liberal Democrats, who have been in a long time have been in the government together, and we have the Green Party. So it's actually three very different political movements who now try to make things work together in Germany. Then it's the first time in Germany, it may sound strange to many countries in the world, the first time in Germany that we have a government cabinet that is made up of an equal number of men and women. Also first in Germany, and it is the first time in over 150 years that Germany has female foreign minister. So this might also sound a bit outdated. We had our chancellor for 16 years, but now we have a woman as a foreign minister for the first time in such a long time. And of course, the new chancellor took over after 60 years of chancellorship of Angela Merkel, and that also was kind of a new era, considered as a new era. And actually, there were kids in Germany growing up asking their parents whether it is allowed in Germany for a man to become chancellor. So this new government represents quite a number of milestones in German politics. And there is a sense of a new beginning in Berlin. And just to mention one item where this sense is particularly acute, this is the energy revolution. Our energy transition in Germany. Germany will exit nuclear. There may be a renaissance in other places, even in our close neighborhood in Europe. But in Germany, the last nuclear power station will be switched off by the end of this year. Germany will not only exit nuclear, Germany will also exit coal, not in the very distant future, but if things work out by 2030. So that is now another 8 years. And I mean, this is a challenge not dissimilar to the one faced here in this country with the energy transition going on. It is not only just a change in the energy mix, it's also a social task. Because I think it involves a lot of structural changes, giving work to all those people who can no longer be work in traditional energy production. And at the same time, in Germany, we need to keep the biggest industrialized economy in Europe running. Very much dependent on energy. So if energy runs dry, then I think the era of German cars, German manufacturing will go on. Unless they will be produced here in South Africa. And there is a chance, if you go to Germany in, let's say, 10 years' time, that you will find an entirely changed country. So there will be only e-vehicles, e-cars left in the roads. No more traditional combustion engines. Energy will be produced by solar, by wind, will be stored in hydrogen. And this will change the entire outlook of our country. And actually, this mentioning hydrogen is one point, one first connection where we look also to Africa. Because we have noticed, thinking about hydrogen, that the natural conditions to produce green hydrogen are much more hopeful on this continent than they are in cold Central Europe. So I think this is an obvious area. Technologically still difficult, but an obvious area where we would look for cooperation. So, so this is the outside. Of course, in the area of foreign policy, as it is with any German government since World War II, we are having a lot of continuity. We are committed and will continue to be committed to international cooperation. We will be firmly rooted in NATO, European integration, and we will be driven by trade, investment, and economic cooperation to many parts and continents of the world, including, of course, Africa. So this new government came with a lot of international ambition as well. And as we have noticed, it didn't take long for these ambitions to be tested by events. Now, I'm not talking about, I'm also talking about Africa, but not only talking about Africa, I'm talking about the crisis in Eastern Europe. The conflict between Russia and Ukraine, the Russian troop concentration along the borders of Ukraine, against the background of an already ongoing conflict in the Donbass, tensions around this, and the efforts by international leaders to kind of defuse the tension. I mean, this involves my government, my new government, really at the moment to the full attention. So our Chancellor traveled to the US the day before yesterday. We spoke to the President mostly about Ukraine. Our foreign minister went for the second time in 2 weeks to Ukraine. Came back also yesterday night. Also went to the line of contact in Zaporizhzhia. And yesterday afternoon, or late afternoon, we had a meeting of the French President, of the German Chancellor, and the Polish president in Berlin, also talking about the crisis. And this moment, France, Germany, Poland, we call it the Weimar Triangle. I worked on this Weimar Triangle actually for over 15 years. And in all this time, I worked to make a meeting on the top level happen. Chancellor and presidency. We didn't find time, and now the crisis came about. It happened very fast. It shows you the seriousness, how we see the situation. And I think it's a good thing that we are talking about this on the highest level. And we will be affected by whatever is going to happen in Eastern Europe, because, of course, this is our immediate neighborhood. But it's not only us who will be affected. I think there's also quite a number of fundamental questions involved in this situation. Fundamental questions touching upon international law and international relations. Question: do neighbors accept the territorial integrity of their neighbors? Easy question, but an important one that needs to be asked in this context. Or do big countries accept the right of smaller countries to decide on their own about their future? Also a question you have to ask. And if you think about these fundamental questions, you see that the conflict there in Eastern Europe does not only have an impact on the situation there, but actually is of relevance internationally all over the world. I mean, these are really basic questions, how we live together in international relations. And that's why I think we have to also take care of it. On Africa, our coalition treaty has 15 lines. The main message is Africa is our neighboring continent. What happens here in Africa is important to us. And therefore, we want to cooperate and build a solid relationship. And of course, this is not revolutionary. There's a lot of continuity here as well with our previous government. But I think there's a conscious commitment to continued cooperation and partnership. And I think this is good news on which we can really build and work. So let me pinpoint a couple of specific priorities when it comes to our Africa posture, seen from Berlin. So first priority is peace and security on the African continent. Creating peace, security, and stability in Africa is vital not only to Africa itself, but of course also to us on the neighboring continent, to contain terrorist threats like in the Sahel region, at the Horn of Africa, in northern Mozambique. I mean, these are questions of international security. And we have a feeling that the situation, at least in some of these areas, is really tense, and there's an urgent need to prevent further destabilization. We want to do this by combining civil and military engagement, but they have to go hand in hand. And we also want to put an emphasis on the democratic legitimization of governments and the rule of law. And here, I think we very positively noted the firm and principled commitment by African institutions, the African Union, ECOWAS in Western Africa, who took a very principled stance, not accepting the coup d'etats that took place in Sudan, in Mali, in Burkina Faso, in Guinea. I think this is very important, and here I think there is an opportunity to work together to try to strengthen democratic resilience and also use the instruments of preventive diplomacy. But to be quite honest with you, while we were thinking about our new Africa policy, we were actually asking ourselves, what is going on at the beginning of this year? I mean, there are now 4 countries under military rule. You have a belt of countries ruled by the military, Sudan, Burkina Faso, Mali, Guinea. We had an attempted coup in Guinea-Bissau. And I mean, there seems to be a real backlash, democratic backlash, which is a big concern in Berlin. And we are asking ourselves, why it is? It's an important question. Because if we cannot give a satisfactory answer to this question, it will be difficult to find a remedy to this situation. And of course, as you know, I mean, it's overshadowed by the crisis in Ukraine. But our biggest foreign engagement of military forces, German military forces, is actually in Mali. So we have a 4-digit number of 1,000 troops in Mali. So we are following quite closely what's going on there. And as things are, again, to be quite honest with you, it will be very difficult to sustain our military presence in trying to stabilize this country under the present circumstances. Military rule, the French ambassador has been sent out of the country. Danish sent a military contingent, went into country, 4 weeks later went out again because they were not welcome. So, you know, when us and our closest partners have a feeling that they are no longer welcome, then it's very difficult for us to stay. The question then is, if we go, what happens then? So this is a big conundrum, and I think here also our foreign policy experts should sit together, should share thoughts, and see what sensible concrete steps could be taken to remedy and stabilize the situation. Peace and security, of course, is also a textbook example of the old equation, African solutions to African problems. That is why we followed here in the region quite closely and attentively, and a lot of appreciation the deployment of the SADC mission to northern Mozambique. And this is this region, Southern Africa, trying to take responsibility in trying to stabilize the situation in northern Mozambique. And we all know that this mission wouldn't go anywhere without South African leadership and the role South Africa has to play. And because we take it so seriously, we are also discussing in Brussels at the moment how we can support at least parts of the engagement of this mission. It's not only about military, it's also about reconstruction, civilian assistance. And I think it's an important debate, and as Germany, we support this debate very much, and we would like to get as operational as soon as possible. So this is the area of peace and security, which is quite important. The second priority I would like to mention is fighting global challenges together. I mean, we have the COVID pandemic, we have climate change, and it is kind of a very simple truth that none of us and none of these challenges can be tackled alone. Without international cooperation, it will not be possible to solve them. I mean, if we can, in Germany, we can set ourselves ambitious climate goals. If the big emitters, like Russia, like China, or like the US, do not have as ambitious climate goals like we have, then we won't go anywhere. And if you look at Africa, Africa is not a big emitter on the global scale, but is a big sufferer, also disproportionate. Africa doesn't contribute to greenhouse gas emissions that much on a global scale, but of course it is drastically and particularly hit by the consequences of climate change, as we witness on this day. So I think here we have to pay attention and to work on global energy transition is a big priority, as working on the pandemic and the vulnerabilities the pandemic has shown is also quite important. Again, here Africa is structurally dependent on the global supply chains, technologies, patents. And I think working on this, we have to overcome, that's our view in Berlin, this traditional so-called donor-receiver relationship. I think we will succeed only in containing the pandemic and eventually overcoming it if we work in cooperative partnerships. So there is a genuine European thrust to support efforts for Africa's own vaccine production. We are very much supporting it. We are working together with France to support setting up opportunities for vaccine production here in South Africa, or supporting South African efforts to set up its own production. We made important financial contributions to this effort, and we're also cooperating to international mechanisms to ensure an equitable vaccine distribution called COVAX. And actually, Germany has put in recent weeks and months about 2.2 billion euro into this global campaign to ensure an equitable vaccine distribution. So this is the second thing, fighting global challenges together. The third thing I would like to mention as a priority in our Africa posture is that we support African regional integration. This is quite an important point. I mean, we have made our own experiences in Europe with European integration as an essential pillar of building a post-war order in Europe. I think in order to partner up between Europe and Africa for a multilateral global order, global governance, and just an equitable global economy, I think it is important to have also strong African and regional institutions. So, you know, we are all very much looking forward to the EU summit next week in Brussels. This is really an opportunity to redefine our political partnership with Africa, and it took such a long time to have this summit. We had originally planned it in actually 2020, when Germany was still chairing the European Union, and South Africa chairing the African Union. So it had to be cancelled and postponed because of the pandemic. Then the Portuguese tried to have it under their 6 months presidency in the EU. The Slovenians tried, and now the French succeeded. So this is, we are very grateful to this leadership by our European leaders, and of course by the French government and rotating chair in the European Union. So this is quite an important thing, and in this summit actually should really redefine the partnership and cooperation approach between our two continents. And I think one thing in this regional integration issue is very important. This is trade. As it is, African states still trade much more with countries, states, and regions from outside Africa than among themselves. And there is now this project in the making, partly realization of the African continental free trade area. We think this is quite important. And when I talk to German business companies, I think this is one issue they always mention. Try to help and support African states and African institutions to make this thing happen. Because I think it offers a lot of opportunities for intra-African economic development. So we support it also financially. We really hope that by putting it also in the right EU framework, that we can make a real significant European contribution to support Africa in making it a success. So this is the third point, regional integration. And then I would like to mention one issue, fourthly, that is a bit specific, but is a point we share, both here in South Africa and in Germany and Europe. It's called migration. It's actually a very important topic, and a very dangerous one, because it's a topic that can be easily exploited by populists. If you watch the German political scene, the rise of far-right parties is directly linked to the problem of migration. So I think in order to make our polity survive, it's a question, it's as urgent as this, in order to make our polity survive, we have to get this thing working. I mean, it is a fact of life that Europe in the north and South Africa in the south is a kind of prime destination for people from other parts of Africa who are looking for greener pastures or who just come from countries or homelands which are not at peace and cannot give them any prospect. So they come. Of course, in Germany, we also have a lot of migration from the East, from the Middle East, and so on and so forth. What this new government is trying on this sort issue is to have a change of paradigm. So far, we have really been intensively tackling illegal migration. We have to continue to tackle illegal migration. But I think one of the points the new government has made is that in order to successfully tackle illegal migration, we have to increase avenues for legal migration. Because I think there's a feeling that these two issues are interrelated. So we are trying to work on new frameworks on legal migration to create legal migration pathways in order to better regulate these flows. And here I think we will not succeed if we don't have a meaningful migration dialogue with African institutions in countries. So this is a very important topic, which we are going also to tackle in our government. Finally, on the general priorities, let me just mention in passing that Germany has this year the rotating presidency in G7, which I think my French colleague was here and talked about the French presidency EU, so we have the presidency in G7. And in the G7, of course, we have a very important outreach as well to other regions in the world. We are going to have outreach in the G7 summit that will also include important African partners. And here, I mean, I cannot give any details now on the planning of the summit, but as we are sharing together with South Africa, the compact with Africa in the other big group in the G20, and this G7 and G20 is closely interlinked. Of course, we are already now intensively talking to the South African government how we can continue this commitment also with the new leadership in Berlin. So this is about general African things, and actually I now would like to say, if I may, also a few words on where this leads us in our view and cooperation with South Africa under our dispensation. I mean, I've already talked about the compact with Africa in G20, but with all these question marks internationally and in Africa, I think there's one continued, I would say almost universal wisdom, also shared in Berlin. South Africa matters. South Africa counts, and it is really difficult for us to think or meaningfully talk about finding solutions for international or regional problems also in the African continent without reference to South Africa and the responsible role of South Africa. Of course, we all know that South Africa itself, like any other country in the world, has its own and enormous challenges. I mean, you report on this, I mean, those ones who are on the press club, they report on it, our international press, German press reports on it. Of course, we know that there's a growth problem in this country. We know that unemployment is running way too high to take many things forward. And we know that there's a need to improve governance and to fight corruption, as in other parts of the world as well. And we are all looking forward to the solar speech by His Excellency the President tomorrow. But having said this, there's no doubt that beyond the borders, you see from abroad, South Africa is the economic powerhouse of the region. It's the most advanced technological hub on the continent. And it is an influential voice in African affairs and institutions. And there's no doubt we need South Africa to build a fruitful relationship with Africa in general. And therefore, we try to be quite selective in our priorities, in our engagement with South Africa, and to make them really strategic. So one of them is, of course, the economic relationship. I think the economic ties between South Africa and Germany are very close. For us, South Africa is by way the biggest economic partner in Africa, and the other way around, Germany is the second biggest trading partner internationally. The EU and Germany being a big part of it is the biggest direct investor in South Africa. Nearly half of direct foreign investment in South Africa comes from the EU. And Germany alone has invested over 6 billion euros. We have 600 German companies, one way or the other, being active in the country, helping to create over 100,000 jobs. So this is all very good, but it's not enough. So we can do much more. And this is, of course, a question also of the framework condition. I've spoken about the Africa Free Continental Free Trade Area. This may be, if it really works, may help to attract more investment, because then you could have a hub radiating into other areas of the continent. But there are also other framework conditions that need to be met to keep the market competitive. And here we have a strong trying to entertain a very strong government-to-government consultation in order to provide a good playing field for our companies. So this is the economic relationship. Another strategic avenue we are taking is, of course, the just energy transition. Only today, I think, or yesterday, the President nominated Daniel Minele as the head of the task force for the climate task force for the energy transition. Of course, we all know energy transition is an enormous challenge, but of course, it's also a huge opportunity in overhauling significantly overhauling the entire, modernizing the entire economy. So we have our bilateral energy partnership between South Africa and Germany that we also want to kind of remodel in this energy transition paradigm. We have the Just Energy Transition Partnership between South Africa and the international climate partners. That is the EU, the US, UK, France, and Germany. And we all know this figure, $8.5 billion US for the next 3 to 5 years from different sources in order to make a meaningful and significant contribution. So we try to fit into this meaningfully, and I think the most important thing is now to really produce as soon as possible the first concrete results, so that everybody sees that the partnership is working and that it's really paying off. So this is on the energy transition. An important point of this is also the element just, because I think this energy transition has a lot of social implications. I come from a region in Germany where we had the social implications of the energy transition exiting coal. So we also used billions of euros in order to soften the effects for the people. So it's a huge enterprise to provide new perspectives. So we know what we're talking about, and that is why specifically on this, we have just defined a joint project, Just Transition for Decarbonized Economy in South Africa, together between our Ministry of the Environment and South African partners, to focus on core regions and communities in order to help to take forward this just aspect of the energy transition. Then I think another strategic avenue we want to take with South Africa is the area of education and training. This is also not new. We have been working on this even on the previous government. And within previous governments, and I think if I remember correctly, it was in 2020 that the Chancellor visited South Africa. Together with the President, they signed a joint initiative on promoting technical and vocational education training. So we are now in full swing trying to implement this. And this is working on specific concrete projects to also share our German experience of the dual training, professional training, which we think are maybe interesting to look at. But also trying to work with our experts and South African experts on the framework conditions to devise framework conditions so that the educational system produces trainees that are really needed in the professional sector. Because what we hear sometimes as a complaint from companies is that, well, there are graduates, but they don't have the qualification skills that they are actually needed in the labor market. So I think there's obviously something that can be done about it. So we are trying to partner with South Africa on this, and very soon, we hopefully gonna open a new lecture development center for TVET lecturers. It's on its way being constructed, and hopefully it will emanate a joint contribution to this sector. So this is just a few. I could speak on South African German cooperation for hours actually, as I'm a German ambassador, but I won't do this because probably it's also good to share thoughts and to see what you are interested in. There are other fields of cooperation that may be interesting. So we do have the elections here, regional elections here, our national election. There was this need of coalition building here and over there. Maybe it's also interesting to share a few thoughts about this. And then maybe just to sum it up, if there's a new beginning in our Africa posture, then this new beginning will be green, it will be just and equitable, and it will be digital. So with this, let me finish with the proverb, a close neighbor is better than a distant relative. So it is actually a Chinese proverb, but I thought while we have issues with China, of course we are always ready to learn from Far Eastern wisdom. And I think this proverb underlines one thing: Europe and Africa are neighbors, and I think we are really we need to cooperate and to support each other to overcome our challenges. So this is the spirit in which we are going to try to work with it, in which we want to partner also with South Africa. So thank you very much.
Ambassador, thank you very much indeed for that excellent tour d'horizon, as your French colleagues would say. Very comprehensive, given us much to think about. And I'm sure now there will be a number of questions from the floor. Please do identify yourself when I ask you to ask you a question, I'm going to point at you so that our sound engineers can bring you a microphone. And if you can make your questions as crisp and short as possible, that would be helpful too. So can I start with our colleague right up front?
Yeah, my name's Anthony Silverberg.
There comes the mic.
Yeah, my name's Anthony Silverberg. First of all, I'd like to thank you for a very interesting talk. But what sort of concerns me is that Germany is one of the most important investors in Africa, particularly for industrial goods, much more important than China, which is only extractive industry. My concern is that Germany is not doing enough to promote the idea that Germany is a very important investor in Africa, perhaps more important than any of the other countries. What can be done to uplift the image of Germany? Thank you.
No, I'm going to send you one.
Okay, good, yeah. Maybe one practical suggestion helping us to win the next World Cup. It's a difficult one actually, because we are also aware of this problem. For instance, let me just give you a small example. We have been very active, as I've said, in the vaccine cooperation. So bringing investment, finding German companies, partnering with South African companies, trying to work on the structures, you know. It's a lot of working hours went into this, and really it's going to help, or it's going to create structural development. So then, of course, I read it in the press from time to time, but then our Cuban friends brought a couple of masks. It was headline news. So we asked ourselves, why is this? So, I think we are going to try from our side to sell what we are doing as well as possible. Maybe it always also takes two to tango. So sometimes we have a feeling in other African contexts that our know-how, our cars, our experts are willingly accepted. But then when it comes to selling them, the emphasis is a little bit less on our contribution to projects or to joint enterprises, but on the contribution of the local partners. And this, I don't know, we're going to think about it. I take it up with our publicity department. But it is, I think, also when you are basing your information and your publicity strictly on facts, sometimes it takes a long time to kind of implement projects. Some other international partners or players sometimes base their information and their publicity work not entirely on facts, but on quick information. It also creates a problem, but we won't do that. So we're going to stick to the facts and try, as one of our former foreign ministers said, try to do good and talk about it.
Thank you. We have a question here in front.
Good evening. Hi, my name is Nianjin. I am a very proud former Kansai scholar. And the question I have for you is, what has the German investment or German presence been in Cabo Delgado, Mozambique, in regards to development and people?
German investments in Mozambique?
Mozambique.
Yes, German presence in terms of the conflict that's ongoing.
Well, actually, I have with me today our Consul General, who was already looking at our embassy. Maybe after we have talked here, we're going to talk directly. She can tell you more about it. But no, we have been, traditionally, we've had a very strong engagement in Mozambique, even dating back to former times. Also dating back to former times before the reunification of Germany, because there was a strong link between former Eastern Germany and Mozambique. And there's a lot of Mozambicans actually who studied at that time in Germany and kept a kind of linguistic and emotional connection with Germany. So we are quite active in the field of economic and development cooperation. We were quite active in this peace process between the government and the NAMO. Also on official channels, on track 2 channels, not quite official channels, so quite a lot to further dialogue. And now I think with the situation in northern Mozambique, we are trying, to be active and to be supportive, as I said, of the SADC mission via the EU. So these are maybe the main tracks.
I think there was a question back then, and then we'll
Good evening. Many thanks for your introduction. My name is Britta Renkat. I'm a researcher at the University of Cape Town, University of Microbiology and Energy issues. I actually have 3 questions for you. The first one is there's lots of continuity between former and current movement, but what's actually new? Like, what do you really need to do so that there are real change that comes with the change in the government? Question number 1. Question number 2 is the important deal that you raised that was here on COP26 on the just energy transition. We've heard a lot of pushback from the Department of Minerals and Energy around it. So how are you going to address those? How are you going to find a way around the opposition that you can coming out of the DMRE? The third question might be the most controversial. Living as a German in South Africa, I can see that there's a phobia in those countries that's there and we need to manage it. You mentioned climate change being one of the vulnerabilities, more migration to both countries. The question is, how do we deal with it? And could there be an opportunity? The more people will fear losses from climate change, the more active they might actually be on climate change. And there's a lot of action that still needs to be taken in both sides. So this is more food for thought for you to basically take in on how to deal on the phobia and action.
Thank you. 2 questions.
Yeah, I think 3 questions, but I think closely interlinked because it all comes down to, in a way, to energy transition and climate change. And the big new thing in Berlin, it was there before, but it's now much bigger, even bigger than it was before, is this energy transition, green energy transition in Germany. So we are really accelerating things in a way that nobody could have dreamt of it. And actually, some people get a bit uneasy about it because everything is now going so fast. But it is going to happen. And this is also, I think, in our posture to third countries and to South Africa. This is big news thing. So our commitment to this green energy transition. I think we worked on it in Glasgow. Glasgow was after our German election, before the new government took over. But to push and to offer our cooperation and to be really part of this effort, this is maybe the new thing. What we are trying to do, and you are right. We also noticed that, as in Germany and in other countries, there's a big internal debate how to go about it. I mean, in Germany, we also have advocates of more traditional sources of energy, be it coal, be it nuclear, be it gas. So for us, gas, which is also a traditional source, is a very important bridge technology. I think it's a debate to be had. You cannot have an energy transition without this debate. Then for us as outside partners, it is difficult to be part of an internal debate in another country, because I think this is the question of energy mix, energy transition. These are really fundamental questions about which every country has to take its own strategic decisions. In the EU, we have a few things to do in common on energy transition, of course, but the actual energy mix in individual countries is determined nationally. So I think it's up for South Africa to chart its course. We have a feeling that the government, despite a lot of, or despite dissenting voices, came up with very ambitious goals, and we are ready to partner in order to work in this direction. And then this last question on the link between climate change and migration. That's one more reason why we need to tackle climate change. I think the issues we face even without any negative climate events in negatively affected areas are big enough. So if you put climate change, droughts, floods on top of this, it will make the need to tackle this issue of migration even more urgent. And here we are actually not talking only migration. I mentioned it mostly in our national, what we're doing trying to international. Actually, migration policy is also a big area of discussion in the EU. So we haven't had, I worked on EU affairs like in here, and 3 years tried unsuccessfully to push a new migration policy in the European Union. So I think this is one of the big open questions left for the new, not German legislative period, but EU legislative period. I think also to find a new migration framework in the EU. So that is really urgent.
Thank you. There's a question over there. One there.
Hello, I'm from Richmond. I'm Messiah. You have very aptly highlighted the issue of migration. And I wonder if I could just ask, we recently published a paper by Alan Hirsch that linked the Free Movement of Persons Protocol, which is an aspiration in Africa to have very much we have in terms of people moving across borders. And then how important that would be for the continental free trade area to actually roll out. But one of the major impediments has been the lack of identity documentation. I wonder if you could speak, I don't know if that's is already on the agenda of the EU AU summit, or Germany, I'm sure has expertise. You mentioned digitalization as what you wanted to see in the future of Africa. How does that play in? I wonder if you could speak to that.
Well, it is being talked about in individual cases, not anything. I mean, the question of the movement of people is always also a general topic. But this question of identity documents as a precondition. I think this is, if it is being talked about, it's being talked about on individual cases, individual countries. And I think it's a question which is very close to the sovereignty of every country to determine the way it designs the identity documents for their own citizens. So we will not, if we are asked to provide expertise or to partner or to provide economic advice how to go about this, we are ready to do so, but we would not offensively offer it because it's very close to sovereignty issues, and I think it's if there's an interest in the need on the other side, I think it's for the other side to talk about it first.
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Claudia Lewis. I'm involved in recently you mentioned the but I just all know that the action or the seeking of Russia is just a continuation situation for the activation of Armenia. And you mentioned that Germany stands strong in NATO. And my question to you is that do you think that things could not like NATO still power that did post-Cold War today in our kind of socio-political climate that we find ourselves in? And do you think that if it just works that the terms of NATO will become viable?
Yeah, I think there was a time in the 90s after the Cold War had ended when we had a debate in NATO and about NATO. Everybody asking, yeah, what is the continued purpose and justification of NATO? Because everybody thought the Cold War had gone, the confrontation between the superpowers had gone, bloc confrontation had gone. So why NATO? I think we all reduced our military budgets. Now there's nobody talking like this anymore. I mean, our new member states, our Baltic friends, Poland, Romania, I think they are grateful to be parts of NATO because they feel that NATO is their life assurance against any threat they might face. So we, with our history of occupation and barbaric acts in the World War, for the first time, sent German troops eastward. So we have a German contingent in the NATO operation based in Lithuania. There was a big debate in Germany. How can we send German troops to these areas who are formerly occupied? And I tell you, I mean, I visited their camp. They are welcome. Yeah, when they came, the Lithuanians said, yeah, we need you, we want to, as part of NATO. So things have changed dramatically. And I think the role and relevance of NATO in this current security situation for its members is quite significant.
Okay, then there's a gentleman there.
Hi, thank you. Steve Kritzman, journalist, freelance. Two questions. You mentioned hydrogen as an energy storage source, and are looking to Africa because Africa has great possibilities for hydrogen. Could you expand on that and where Africa are presenting the best South Africa in that respect? I know, for instance, UWC. And then, secondly, question may I offer a solution to first question about the public image is the arts. German institutions such as our Institute have been very supportive of arts institutions. Is that something that the new government will continue to support? Perhaps even increase?
Yeah, the answer to the second question would be yes. In fact, quite a number of areas we had budget cuts, but in this area we managed to keep these budget cuts very minimal. So we are really committed to continue to work. We have a good institute, we have DAT, German schools. And indeed, I think these are really important factors to establish this kind of necessary connection and reaching out and creating a connection between our countries. So this is a big yes. There are many interesting things in the wider debate of this. As you will have followed, there's this big debate in Europe and in Africa on on returning artifacts in European museums to African places. So we have a big thing going on now between Germany and Nigeria on the Benin bronzes. Very close to the operational implementation. I mean, we didn't, in this case, we were not the ones who took them out, but our traders bought them from those who took them out in 1897. So we had a big discussion in trying to implement a big project, which may also have a landmark significance in this entire debate to return African artifacts to Africa. First question on hydrogen. We have a couple of concrete projects with basically all the big players in South Africa in the field. We are talking with Sasol. I'm working with Sasol. We are working with Eskom on this. And we are also working with independent power providers. And we also have a couple of German private enterprises who, independent of us, are also interested on private projects, partnering with South African partners. And there we have a German program run by the Ministry of the Economy. If these programs also comply with a number of requirements, they may, once they have been launched, also receive support by the federal government. So we're also trying to, disseminate this information, because actually it might facilitate discussions between private actors. If they know, in case they fulfill certain requirements, they might get a private-public partnership afterwards.
Thank you. Where is our microphone? Back there.
Hello, Christopher. 150 years ago, my great-grandfather migrated from Berlin to South Africa. And because of that background, I was retrained when Germany was divided after the war. We pleased in the war after 1989, Germany was reunited. I know there were many challenges, and I just want to ask whether that reunification project has been successfully completed, and how you see Germany coming out of that.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. And just to tell you one concrete example of reunification is myself. I wouldn't stand here if there hadn't been reunification because I'm from the east of the country. So I'm from the wonderful city of Dresden. And that shows you that we have come a long way in reunification now that we are sending out people from the east, even as ambassadors of the reunified Germany. That's number one. Number two, I think we have achieved quite a lot of things in our reunification. We have actually created an unprecedented uplifting of social and professional and material conditions in the East. So there has been an incredible development taking place. We have really also using a lot of money, created a new economic unity in the country, and created up-to-date production facilities also in the East. So a lot of things have been achieved. But to be quite honest, the reunification in the heads, as we call it, I think may take some more time to go. So sometimes there is a debate in Germany that you would still know the kind of regional affiliation persons, depending whether they are from the east or whether they are from the west. And there's there's a kind of political tendency of dissent in Eastern Germany, a tendency to vote also for far right or far left parties. And some people say there's maybe also a connection with some still unresolved questions, reunification of making East Germans part of this entire unified German setup. But again, this is a very kind of slippery slope to go, because we also have big differences between the north and the south of Germany. So if you talk to somebody from Bremen and then somebody from Bavaria, then you will also hear all kinds of issues between them. So, but on this, I would say we still have to invest a lot. But overall, after 30 years, we have achieved quite a lot.
Hi, I'm Masha gas. You mentioned gas. I was just wondering if you say that the German government is open to talking, you are in regards to gas.
It would not be our primary focus. So we are really looking at renewables, and we certainly will not be focusing on supporting, the increase of gas in the energy mix. If South Africa decides to go for this, it's a South African decision, and I think we made a decision in Germany that we still need gas. We want to outsource it, but without nuclear, without coal, we will not be able to exit gas immediately. So we even built an important new pipeline in the Baltic Sea. No, we didn't build it; the Russians built it. But there's if it's delivers gas, then it will also be gas designed to go to Germany. So it would not be our primary focus in this energy transition. Internationally, we would like to work very much on this.
Good evening. My name is Horst Tracer, retired with a Welcome to South Africa, Mr. Ambassador. I would like to know how do you and how does Germany or the European Union view the increased influence of China, especially in Southern Africa, and how do you see counterbalance that?
Well, there's no way you can deny that China has had an incredible economic development in the past 20, 30 years. I think it overtook other industrialized countries. Now it's the number 2, and maybe sometime soon it's going to be the number 1 in the world economy. So it is to be expected that China is playing an important role. And per se, to seek also cooperation in areas where this is possible. We have many issues, as I've said, with China, but there are economic fields where cooperation is possible. I think is not prohibited. So actually, German companies are also doing quite a lot in cooperation with China. But I think what is an important question is that what we would expect from China is to, if it deals with Africa, if it deals with us, with other European partners, that it is dealing fairly. So, sometimes when you look at the small letters of contracts of cooperation, then some of the projects are not so attractive anymore. They do not bring jobs. They may involve third countries in the debt trap and things like this. So I think this is a serious discussion. I think we need to have. I think we are also talking about it with China, but I think we also need to have it with partner countries worldwide, also in Africa, in South Africa. Actually, it's not only in South Africa, it's, I think, all over. I was a couple of years back, I was ambassador to Kenya. And they have just reconstructed their railway line. I think it was the important project to open up the country in historic times. It was built by the English. The new railway line, quite symbolically, has been built by the Chinese. And actually, it led to a very big increase of foreign debts. So it's a bigger problem, but we need to address the challenges actually quite openly and really create an awareness. And then some of the things China is doing, like there was this big Silk Road project. So actually, the EU is trying also to create alternatives of its own. That is a big strategy with individual projects to increase flows of ideas and goods, and transport links, not only funded by Chinese money, also funded by international European money, and also involving companies, international companies, European companies. So we are trying to create alternative ways, alternative offers as well. So this is true actually to an extent. In Africa, it is very true in Eurasia, because there the interconnectivity links and the states of Central Asia, for instance, they are looking for alternatives, and we are trying to make offers as well.
Thank you, Ambassador. Last two questions, one here and then one.
Thank you very much. Sheila Camera, Sire, West Cape. Ambassador Peshka, you just mentioned the Nord Stream gas pipeline from Russia, which is a project that Germany is very involved with and interested in. There have been a number of reports in the media that Germany is somewhat equivocal about or reluctant to stand with its fellow EU member countries in support of Ukraine against Russian aggression. And I wondered if you'd like to clarify the position of Germany in that regard.
But as we look at it, these issues may be connected to, in case of the Russian aggression. So far, in the recent past, they have not been connected. Actually, Germany is unequivocal in its solidarity with Ukraine. We are individually and bilaterally one of the biggest supporters of the Ukraine economy, economic cooperation, politically leading the negotiations to solve the conflict in eastern Ukraine with Russia. So we are very strong supporters of Ukraine, and there can be no doubt about it. On this Nord Stream issue, it has been a controversial issue for a long time. Many of our Central and Eastern European partners to the east of Germany have been critical about it. So we have had long debates with them about the project, and we had different views, because whereas they were saying right from the beginning it does not increase energy security in Europe, we said, well, it does. It may, because it continues to diversify energy supply. And in fact, when in former cases of not forthcoming gas supplies from the east, from Russia, Ukrainians and other partners very proudly said, okay, now we are getting most of our gas from reverse flow, which is good. They got it from us, but we got it in the first place via other sources from Russia. So there's a lot of the issue is actually quite complex. But now I think with the crisis in Eastern Europe, I think our Chancellor has been quite clear. Also, when he visited the US, that in case of an aggression, everything is on the table, and the answer would be very clear and strong, and of course, in total solidarity with our NATO and European allies.
Thank you, Michael. Mr. Ambassador, thank you for the presentation. It speaks to me. I'm Anthony Glenn Gonzalo. I work at the University of Cape Town. I also work with South African Sea Cadets, which is an NGO. I'm very interested to know what your country may be willing to participate in youth development in South Africa and in the region.
Well, one is the strategic issue of education training. I think this is a big pillar of youth development, where we would like to partner and continue to put energy. I've spoken mainly about the issue of training, vocational training, but of course, we also have very strong partnership programs between universities. So scholarship programs, exchange programs, exchange between lecturers, partnership between universities. So we are going to continue this. And we hope actually that after the pandemic, I think many of it has been reduced significantly due to the pandemic, but with the pandemic easing, which is not yet the case in Europe, but with the pandemic easing, that we may revive much of these exchange programs, because I think it also relates to the first question: what can we do about our image, our joint future, our people relations? So we think this is actually quite important.
Ambassador Peshka, thank you very much indeed for being here tonight with us, for your wide-ranging speech, and also for answering a series of pretty wide-ranging questions directly and candidly. We wish you well in your mission now. Not that long, so lots still to go. And as you yourself said, the agenda of things to move both the South African continent is fairly long, and a lot of important work to do collaboratively between the various parts, both continentally, nationally, and institutionally. So we have a little memento on behalf of the institutions to most of you here today. If I can hand that over to you. Thank you very much indeed once again. And I gather there's some refreshments, so join us for informal chats and a little bit more refreshment. Thank you to the partner organizations and to the staff thereof for organizing today so successfully. Thank you. Yes. Very good. All right. Yeah, sure. Not really.
So your transition now.
Yeah.